Hello there, my listeners. I realize that it has been several months since we last posted an episode on the Finding Peace podcast. Part of that is because life has been a little bit crazy around here. People often ask me, how do you do all the things that you do? I run private practice. I am an author. I go speak. I teach classes. I run webinars. I don't sleep. And unfortunately, one of the things that got pushed to the side over the last few months was the podcast. So I'm trying to reprioritize some things in my life to make sure that this happens. I have some beautiful guests that I have interviewed, and you should be hearing the next season of the Finding Peace podcast coming up in just a few weeks. One of the things, though, that's really been sitting with me for the past few weeks is this concept that everything that happens to us is for our good. And I honestly wrestle with that. It's one of those things that people say at funerals that are really dumb when you have a loved one that's passed away and somebody goes through the line and they say, well, God probably needed them in heaven, or it must have been their time, or some things like that. And they say it in a way to try to be comforting, but it really stings oftentimes for the person hearing the message. So that's kind of the same feeling that I feel when I hear that everything that happens is for your good, or that the universe really does have your back. One of my favorite poems is Max Ehrmann's Desiderata, and one of the lines in the poem says, "The universe is unfolding as it should." I struggle because as a therapist, I see and hear really tough things in people's lives every day. And I go through tough things in my own life, and I often sit and think, why is this good? This can't possibly be good. You may have heard of the story of the Chinese man who was a wealthy man. He had several horses, and one day his horses escaped. And the neighbors all flipped out. And they came over and said, "Oh my goodness, it's so awful that your horses ran away. What are you going to do? That was your livelihood. Your life is ruined." And he said, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We shall see. And then a few days later, the horses came back. And not only did they come back, but they brought a whole herd of horses with them. Some wild horses came back with them. And so his herd, I don't know what the word is, herd, flock, his group of horses doubled. And the neighbors ran over and said, "Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. It's so great. Look how great it is. You must have the best fortune in the world that all these horses came back. So great." And he said, well, maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. His son was out trying to train these new horses one day, and one of the horses bucked and fell and landed right on his son's leg and snapped it in two. And the neighbors ran over and said, "Oh my gosh, it's so horrible. It's just awful. I can't believe that happened. You should have gotten rid of these horses. It's so bad. And now look, your son has a broken femur, and he's not going to be able to help you with the farm work. He's not going to help you on the ranch, and you're going to have to do it all by yourself. And this is going to be awful. I can't believe, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And the man said, maybe it is bad. Maybe it isn't. And a couple of weeks later, there was a war that broke out in the land, and the emperor sent out to enlist every able-bodied young man to join the army. And so they came to the village, and they took all the able-bodied young men, but the only one they didn't take was the rancher's son, because he had a broken leg, and so he couldn't go. And the neighbors ran over and said, "Oh my gosh, isn't it amazing that your son can't go? He doesn't have to go to war. It's going to be all right. He's going to be able to stay home and help you around the house. Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful?" And the man said, "Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't." that willingness to kind of lean into the discomfort of what may have been perceived as bad or good, and seeing how it unfolds later is the lesson of the story. But I don't know about you. Sometimes I have a really hard time leaning into that. A couple of weeks ago, I was whining, complaining about something, and my shadows of shame were out. I'm not going to lie, especially my impotent one. It was like, nothing ever works out for you. I don't even know why you even bother. You just should give up, and just nothing's great. And you're expending too much energy. You just need to give up. And I was like, yep. And so I vocalized this to a group of friends, and one of them said, Troy, come on, you're supposed to teach this stuff. And then my judge showed up too. And I was like, yeah, you're supposed to teach this stuff. You're supposed to be the example. You're supposed to be the one to help people remember not to buy into what their shadows say. Well, I'm still learning just along with all of you, but it was a good reminder. And it made me reflect again on that principle that all things happen for our good. Oh, I don't like sitting with that. It is a painful truth. And I do say truth. It is a painful truth. But it made me start to ponder upon, what if that is actually true? What if struggling with a disability? What if getting a diagnosis of some kind of ailment? What if having a child struggling in school? What if losing your job? What if being not picked for something that you were running for? All of those things actually were for our good. What if that were really true? And how would I handle things? How would I look at things from that perspective when something doesn't go the way that I want it to? Would I look at it like the rancher guy, or would I look at it from the lens of my impotent one? As I pondered upon this, I remembered a story that an old therapist that I had, his name was Mike Robachek, and he recently passed away of cancer. And I'm sad to hear of his loss. He had a profound and beautiful impact in many people's lives. He told me this story about living on a farm. And my son knows this because he goes over to his friend's house, and they have several cows, they have some pigs, they have some chickens, and they have some goats. And I don't know if you've been on a farm before, but all of those animals poop. They poop a lot. So they clean out the area where all these animals live, and they put all the poop in this big old pile in the backyard. It doesn't smell good. It stinks. It's not attractive. And they put it there. And they let the sun sit on it, and they mix it with other things. And then they take that poop and they move it to the front. They sprinkle it on their yard. They put it in their garden to help their food grow. They use it to cultivate and make the dirt enriched with new things so that it is better quality. And Dr. Mike talked about how that's what we can do with the things that feel really poopy in our lives. We can put them in the back, and we don't have to look at it, and it become this big old pile of stink, and it's overwhelming, and there's flies and stuff. And it can sit there for a while until we're ready to deal with it. And then we can go out there and say, yep, that is poop. It is poopy. It stinks. But then we take it and we use it to improve our lives. We use it to sprinkle into the front yards of our lives. We use it to plant in the gardens of our hearts. We use these bad and not so great things that have happened to improve ourselves. It's a lesson that I'm still trying to learn. And yet, it's something that I'm really sitting with right now, that the universe is unfolding as it should, and everything that happens to us is literally for our good. I'll keep you posted on what I explore and learn more about. But I'd love to hear your comments. You can share with us in the various reviews if you'd like to, and that would be amazing to hear what you have to say. Remember that you are worthy of love and belonging, and that you are enough.